Hi there, Kimberly here, and this is part 2 in my 4-part series entitled Saying Yes to More. Saying yes to more joy in your life, a joy that bubbles out in every direction. Saying yes to undaunted peace, no matter what the twists and turns may be in your life. Saying yes to greater freedom. Saying yes to greater connection. If you haven't had a chance to watch the first video, you can click on it in the link below in the description. In the first video, I speak to the nature of inspiration, of what it means to say yes, of what more is even about in being a human being. I also speak to 3 challenges and 3 solutions. In this video, I would like to build on that by speaking to you about what it means to stay in our yes. Let me start with a story. It comes from the Dead Poets Society. Great movie if you haven't seen it. And the lead character is Robin Williams, who plays a nonconformist professor. He is newly hired on to a boarding school that's very conservative. This scene opens up in the first day of the poetry class. He has the boys get up out of their seats, which is unheard of, and he takes them out into the foyer. He has one boy read part of a poem. "Gather ye rosebuds while ye may." And he draws them into understanding what that means. He has them cluster around the pictures in the foyer of alumni, men their very age that went before them. He has them look into their faces. He reminds them that at their age, they felt invincible, just like they do. He tells them that these alumni felt that they had desires and dreams and could conquer the world, just like they do. And he walks behind them. Carpe diem. Carpe diem. He whispers into their surprised ears. And he reminds them that now all of those men that they're looking at are fertilizing daffodils. Seize the day, carpe diem, he invites them on. He tells them that they're meant to suck the marrow out of life. That's a dramatic invitation, isn't it? And that's the invitation that lies at our very center, you and me, saying yes to that more, being on the edge of our own comfort zone, to step into the new inspiration again and again and again, not just once where we remember a great time, but so many times that we can struggle to note which one has been most powerful. Do you feel the carpe diem alive in you? What are the desires within you brimming right now? And have you ever felt discouraged, despairing, wondering if it's possible? I'm here to say that if that desire lies within you, it is meant to be fulfilled. And I want to help you tap that inspiration and stay in it, so that you can blossom out in our world in the fulfillment of these desires. I am here at your service. Now, staying in your yes is built on saying yes. And this commitment to yourself, which takes everything you can possibly give, is also the fruit. It fills your life with the greatest happiness, the greatest clarity and focus, meaning and purpose. And we'll get into all of these things. First, let me share with you 2 benefits that I find to be very powerful in staying in our yes. The first one is quality of presence. Now, you may wonder if this is a benefit. After all, it's not simply more money or more time, something measurable like that. But there is a measure to it. Quality of presence means that you are available for your life, that you are available emotionally, physically, psychologically, spiritually, built upon the resources that I wish for you, that you'll have time, relationship, money, all the things that you desire. Quality will give you the spaciousness to enjoy them. It's one thing to have the ability to take the vacation of a lifetime, or even to take many vacations that you long to take. It's another thing to be fully there, to be present laughing in the car with your loved one, to soak in the nature that you choose to be a part of. That's quality of presence. It's one thing to accomplish all your goals, to fulfill your daily obligations, to check them off your list. It's another thing to go to the supermarket, which is on your list, and enjoy the person standing in front of you, looking to check out their groceries just like you. That's quality of presence, and that is the juice of life. All my years of formation are at the service of that. From the age of 5 onward, I have felt in the fiber of my being that life is about one thing, the being and the becoming in this source, in spirit, in God, in this life force, that there isn't anything else. And it's taken many shapes and many turns. Empowered and fired up by this love, I joined a monastery when I was 24, and for 10.5 years immersed myself in what I considered are the arms of the beloved. It was the fulfillment of my desires. And moving from there, the past 17 years, I've had the fulfillment of desires to presence tens of thousands of people in retreats and workshops and talks and sessions, to reflect back to them that inspiration arising from their core, and to be at the service as minister, as spiritual director, as meditation coach, to be at that service that they realize the fulfillment of their desires. I know what it's like to feel frustrated when your desires aren't fulfilled. I can't tell you how many times when I was in the monastery living in silence and I wanted to be communing in all of this peace and sweetness, only to find my mind was caught up in some stress or some worry or some idea of myself. But following that path in the silence, I discovered the dismantling of the very elements stressing me out and limiting me from the enjoyment of life. What is life if not a celebration meant to be enjoyed? Now, the second benefit is synchronicity. So we are meant to use all our faculties for our good and the highest good of all the world. We're meant to use our intelligence and our diligence and our ethics and our heart. We're meant to use our bodies. We're meant to pour ourselves out. And this is at the service of the world and our desires. But as you and I stand more and more inspired, not only do we harness all of those abilities, but synchronicity happens. What would it be like as you stay in your yes? You experience greater focus. And in that greater focus are not only more productive, but find that the universe seems to be conspiring to set up perfect timing for the fulfillment. Or having that one person you needed to hear from show up. That's synchronicity. That is not only having miracles happen in your life, but finding that life by its very nature is miraculous and you are in that flow. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? At least it does to me. I am still along my path of learning, but I do appreciate quality and synchronicity so much in the fiber of my being, and I would like you to experience it as well. There's a great quote that speaks to this by Goethe. You've probably heard it. It says, "Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it now. Boldness has magic, genius, and power in it." Yes, begin it now. I want you to taste that your boldness will open you up to the magic, genius, and power of your being. So let's get into the practical part of this. As I mentioned in the first video, I spoke to saying yes, and it would be very helpful to watch that, for that lays the groundwork for this video. But if you don't have time or inclination, you'll gain just as much from this one. This video, I want to speak to what it means to stay in your yes. There are so many challenges that arise because the challenges are simply our limitations, and limitations are manifold, aren't they? But the steps of living an inspired life are non-negotiable. Saying yes to it and staying in it. Now, these two non-negotiable steps are attested to well in my TEDx talk. You can take a look at KimberlyBraun.com if you'd like to watch that 11-minute talk. I want to lay out the bigger picture that there wasn't time in that talk to share. When I entered the monastery, I was on fire with love, and I entered in North Dakota. We lived a very traditional lifestyle. We lived almost exclusively in silence, and we would get up at midnight and again at 5:30 and chant and meditate and pray. In fact, our day revolved around the chant, prayer, and meditation. That was our priority. We farmed the land, and the lifestyle was rich beyond what I can share with you here. Everything spoke to me about it. Everything excited me. After my solemn vows, those are vows you take for life, I was asked to join a daughter community that had been founded about 6 years prior. They needed more nuns to join to help out. There were 4 there, and they were older, and I was young and zealous, and I said yes. When I joined them in Texas, I found the lifestyle to be just as rich, but very different. Typical of new foundations, we had been given a house to begin until we created or founded or built our permanent monastery. And we converted the house into a semi-monastery with a chapel where visitors could come as well. We lived on the edge of town, and the gregarious, warm Hispanic culture and all of the other ethnicities that lived there, they loved us and we loved them. Our life was rich in community and friendships. One challenge we had, however, was silence. North Dakota was nestled away in rural land. Our doorbell rarely rang. In Texas, the doorbell rang all the time. People seeking prayer, people coming to give us gifts. They loved us, as I said, and we loved them. But silence was challenged, and I hungered for the silence. I was so on fire with this contemplative lifestyle. So fast forward into the TEDx talk, I went out back for my meditation. And I was coming from a place of dissatisfaction. I hungered for the silence. I hungered for something I didn't have. It was a longing, a wordless expression. that came out of me in my meditation. And it was in that place that I heard, build the permanent monastery. Now, my big yes that I talked to in the TED Talk was under the assumption that I wasn't going to build the monastery, that we simply as a community were going to build it, that was the answer to my prayer and my desire. I had no idea that yes would take me on a journey of me being an integral part as general contractor in building that monastery. My yes took me into unexpected gifts and opportunities that I had no idea would happen. That is what saying yes will do for you as well. So the staying in the yes is not simply this rigid stance, it's more of a dynamic dance that we continue moment by moment by moment. And while the roadmap will not be laid out to you when you give your yes to an inspired life, you will always have the resonance as you stay in the yes. I'd like to speak to some of the challenges here. Because when we say yes, there is a jumping in quality. So it's an interesting paradox. When you are inspired and you say yes, you jump in with a certainty because of the experience, but you jump into an uncertainty because of the amount of unknown. I'm speaking to this circularly because I want to give a lot of different language to it. Since it's such a mystical process, this realizing ourselves as human beings, I find it pretty potent to use descriptors around it. So let me speak to some of the challenges. I want to do 3. The first is that storms arise. They will arise from within, they will arise from without. And they can rock us. They can lead us to doubt the inspiration. They can leave us confused or undone. They can shake things up that we go through loss. And that can be a challenge. But it doesn't have to be a challenge. When a storm arises, I would like to offer you a solution. Redirect your focus. Now, in video 1, I speak very succinctly and deeply about a notion of reinforcing. And from where I stand, redirecting is a part of reinforcing, but I want to approach it separately here. Redirecting means that when you're getting rocked and getting caught in the storm, you choose to shift your focus to the inspiration. This can be a little bit of work, right? If there is work in the process, that can be work because we can get caught in the storm. I was working with a man, Thomas, and this is a wonderful storm because I think many of you out there can relate to it. He wanted to live more from his heart, and he was very intelligent and very quick, and he found that he used his intelligence in a way that didn't really satisfy him and bring him to his heart. It was more of a stance of dominance and position. When he would practice moving into his heart, he found that every single time when he triggered into being dominant with his intelligence, he would judge himself. He would cut himself off. And then he would end up being more and more unsettled instead of more and more peaceful. Well, in our working together, I invited him to redirect his focus. That when he wished to be from his heart and he found himself being dominant, to simply shift to his heart and allow the mind to be there so that the mind could learn to be of service to the heart and not be cut off from what it had to offer. This took time because it felt powerful to judge himself for being dominant with his intelligence. It was another use of the mind that created this stance. But over time, the more and more he redirected, the more he found he was coming from the place that really satisfied him, and his intelligence began to be at the service of that. We are meant to use all our faculties. I remember when I was 7 years old and I was laying on the grass on a summer day in Cincinnati. I was probably looking up at the clouds, which I love to do, and I love to feel the grass underneath me. And out of nowhere, this thought of how strong my drive was came to me. That I had this like fire in me to accomplish and do. And when I became aware of this thought brought it up, I felt really scared. I thought, what if I just use this to hurt people or to hurt myself or to do bad? I was afraid of my own will. When I was honest with how I truly felt about my own faculty of having a will, time seemed to stop. And immediately I realized that having a will is a gift. And that gift can be harnessed to go exactly to my center each and every moment, so that it was at the service of spirit, of the highest good. That is redirecting. It's not cutting ourselves off from parts of ourselves. It's coming back into alignment firmly and gently and letting all the faculties learn how to be of service of that. The second challenge, it kind of goes along with this. We get the idea that to stay in our yes means we need to be strong in a rigid sort of way. We've been influenced by this for so many years. I can even trace back to 3000 BC when conquering and weapons were coming in the scene in the European, kind of Asian area, and strength was seen by a leadership that was unflinching and oftentimes harsh and demanding. This is not strength in the kind of strength I'm speaking to, and yet we can bring that type of harshness into our idea of saying and staying in our yes. Why would I speak about perspectives and not just give you practices? If you hear a word that speaks truth to you, it can shift your very neural pathways. It can start a new train of thought. So speaking about perspectives that are less than helpful, if not destructive, and setting them in a new definition, giving some new truth to it, can be the very means by which you fulfill your desires. So I would like to invite you to reposition strength, to look at staying in your yes as a firm commitment, a discipline of remembering who you are and what you want, but to allow it to make you flexible, to be like water. Think about how water moves, and it's so surprising in how it moves, and yet it wears away stone, which seems so much stronger. You will be saying no a lot more as you stay in your yes. And saying no is a marking of territory. But when it's at the service of a yes, there is a humbling way that we admit our truth. It takes courage, but you have courage. It takes willingness, and I know you have willingness because you're a human being. The third challenge, the idea that to stay in our yes means we're going to be alone more and more and more. Granted, when we continue to change in life, and life is about change if we're in our flow, everything around us will change. There will be a quality of movement in friendships and relationships, in circumstances, in the work that we do, and how we do our work. in our relationship with ourselves. And there is something solitary about that journey. I bow before that solitary journey. I bow because it feels like you are a burning bush when you say yes to that solitary journey. But it doesn't mean you're going to be alone. Let me give you an example. Think of someone you consider to be a luminary or a prophet or an icon. Gandhi is a great one. Mother Teresa is a great one. The list could go on. Think of Gandhi. When you think of him, does he appear to be standing solid before you? Or is he lost in a sea of people, like a big crowd that you can hardly distinguish him? He stands solid, doesn't he? Because he has embodied his truth. And yet, he connects with people of all times. We use quotes from Gandhi to inspire each other day after day. I see them on Facebook all the time. Because his commitment to this solitary journey of staying in that inspired life and the ever-changing nature of truth in his life has opened him up to the greatest intimacy and the greatest freedom. That's what your life is intended to be. So even as you embrace the solitary journey, you will find yourself even more and more and more connected. That can feel so big though, right? When you think of someone like Gandhi and the magnitude with which he influences our world even today, it can feel so big. I like to look at it this way. This makes it really manageable for me because from where I stand, it's as within, so without. So this universal desire for this inner freedom is so big. But it takes us on a path of getting to know ourselves. One point of focus. And one point is so small. That one point of focus opens us to lose the small sense of self to find ourselves in the all so big. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? I think it is. I hope you do as well. When we say yes, when we stay in our yes, we will experience anything that stands in the way of that. But I want you to remember that those limitations come into your awareness so that they may be dissolved. When you have the dissatisfaction of having a desire and not having it fulfilled, that dissatisfaction is churning the water so that you won't settle for less of who and what you are. Dissatisfaction, despair, discouragement, they are not meant to discourage you and keep you down and squash you and contract you. They are meant to push you so you break through into the fulfillment of all those desires. So let me recap. Saying yes is step one. Staying in your yes, the topic of this video, is step two. Both are non-negotiable in living your fully inspired life. A life where you brim with joy. A life where peace washes through you and from you. A life where your sense of purpose grows greater day by day. A life where you find wisdom, where there may be doubt or confusion, and so much more. I could go on and on. Staying in your yes will give you this fruit. And I want you to know that even though it's a solitary journey, I pointed that out in the third challenge, that you are not alone. Not only will you experience greater connection on deeper levels. But I want to show you that companionship upon this journey, something that I offer my life for, is available to you in many ways, shapes, and forms. I'm just one example of that. Staying in that yes is going to give you the benefits of quality of presence, being available for your life so that it doesn't fly by and you wonder where the time went. It's going to give you the benefit of enjoying synchronicity, where miracles are a common part of your life. Staying in your yes will invite you into the work of redirecting your focus so that as storms arise, you're not carried along with them, but you're strong. And that strength is not rigidity, it makes you more flexible. So there you have it. I hope you'll join me for part 3 of this 4-part series. I'm going to really roll out the red carpet for you, but I want to leave you with that tease because I mean something very specific about rolling out the red carpet and what it means for you. So I hope you'll join me and let's stay connected. My website's Kimberly Braun, my email, kimberly@kimberlybraun.com. And all my social media, you can find me just Googling Kimberly Braun. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter are my most common ones. Join my YouTube channel, Kimberly Braun Media. Send me a comment. Let's make this a conversation. Put out there some of the quandaries that you have, some of the breakthroughs that you have, some of the hopes, some of the disappointments. I'm here for that. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Blessings.